So let's talk about Evangeline Lilly. Now, this story has been blowing up over the course of the past couple days. Everyone's been talking about her coming out and making comments about how she felt uncomfortable during a nude scene on Lost. So much so that it actually got back to JJ Abrams, who says here in a statement, along with other people that he worked with, that he's sorry for the Evangeline Lilly Lost nude scene. Saying here, Lost director JJ Abrams says he reached out to actress Evangeline Lilly after she complained about being forced into doing a nude scene on the show. Now, the thing when it comes to being forced into doing a nude scene on a show for ABC is that no one's really ever nude. I actually went looking for the scene and I couldn't really find it. Everyone's talking about this story. They're talking about what Evangeline Lilly has said and JJ Abrams' response, but no one has really linked to the scene in question from season 3 or even another scene that she complained about in season 4. Now, the show ran from 2004 to 2010. So, there's a lot that's gone on in there. But as we look into what Evangeline Lilly herself has actually said, you kind of get an idea for, I think, where she's ultimately coming from. Now, it says here that director JJ Abrams has tried to make contact with Evangeline Lilly after the actress revealed this week that she was left trembling and in tears after being cornered into doing a particularly nude scene on the TV show Lost. Now, I'm not trying to take away from her feelings on this one, but Evangeline Lilly, over the course of promoting Ant-Man and the Wasp, has made a lot of very incendiary statements about her career and about a few other things that has really kind of, I think, risen the eyebrow on a lot of people. Like, is she, when it came up to the whole, like, Ant-Man and the Wasp and her being the first female to kind of, take over a title for a Marvel film, she was really playing it up. And it kind of feels like even here, she's still kind of playing it up. She's retelling an old story. She's putting that kind of exacerbated spin on it, that exaggerated spin on it, to gain more sympathy, to garner more sympathy, especially in the time of Me Too. I feel like it's almost done as a way to kind of like retroactively get some kind of validation or just to get that response, right? And when you read the article here and it says that JJ has tried to contact her, that seems a little bit weird that he's tried. There's questions that I have here. Now it says Abrams, who made a name for himself directing Lost, has released a statement saying here that our response to Evie's comments in the media was to immediately reach out to her, profoundly apologize for the experience she detailed while working on Lost. We have not yet connected with her, but remain deeply and sincerely sorry. No person should ever feel unsafe at work, period. And that's entirely true. No person should ever feel unsafe at work. But when you're on a set, when you're doing a show, it takes 8 days to film one episode. One 44-minute episode roughly is 8 days. So you're working 21, 23 episodes a season. You're out there for 6 months at a time. So it's a lot of constant work. It's a lot of constant contact. A lot of people are fully aware of what's going on with everyone else on set. So it's kind of like, why is it now, literally 11 years after the fact, that we're now hearing about this? Because that's when it was. Season 3 of Lost would have come out in 2006, 2007. Right around that same time, JJ Abrams is getting ready to release his first feature film, Mission Impossible 3. So he wouldn't have been on set during that time. He would have been off shooting Mission Impossible and then producing the show from a distance. But everyone, there would have been a talk about this. There would have been a discussion about this. That's why it's always kind of been, this is why this story is kind of peculiar to me. Now, it says here from Evangeline Lilly, in season 3, I had a bad experience on set while being basically cornered into doing a scene partially naked, and I felt I had no choice in the matter. I was mortified. I was trembling when it was finished. I was crying my eyes out, and I had to go do a very formidable, very strong scene thereafter. Now, the image here that the article uses is Sawyer and Evangeline Lilly, getting it on, making it out, right? That's all it really says. I don't know if that's the direct one. Again, she's never specific about what it is. And I haven't been able to find which specific scenes she's in reference to, just to check them out, just to see like, how crazy was it? Because again, this is just, it feels like she's saying something from 11 years ago. And yet we have kind of photo video evidence of what would have come out. And yet there's been nothing. Right? There's been nothing. So it's so weird. But she goes on to say here, because there's another scene. Another scene in season 4 came up when Kate was undressing, and I fought very hard to have that scene be under my control, and I failed again to control it. So I then said, that's it, no more. You can write whatever you want. I won't do it. I will never take off my clothes on this show again, and I didn't, which is good. I mean, I'm glad. I don't, if he doesn't want to do it, then she doesn't want to do it, and that's fine. But at the same time, there's also contractual obligations that do pop up quite a bit. If there ever was a problem on set, she's not only got an agent, she's got a manager, there's a union rep. There are always people she could reach out to in order to contact about this being a specific problem. This was an ABC owned property. This was a huge show on ABC. Any whiff of controversy would have very much drawn a huge spotlight to it, and people would have been talking about it. Now, here's where I think we get to the crux of the problem. This is where I really think, because she kept talking, we kind of see what's going on here. Now, she said that her character was kind of cool, but as the show went on, she became more and more predictable and obnoxious, saying, I felt like my character went from being anonymous, really having her own story and her own journey and her own agendas, to chasing men around the island, and it irritated the shit out of me. I did throw scripts across the room when I read them because I would get very frustrated by the diminishing amount of autonomy that she had, while the diminishing amount of her own story that there was to play. There's nothing wrong with women's lives being characterized by their relationships. I think that often happens to men and women, but there was this eventual lack of dimension that was going on with her. And I think that's it. I think by time season 3 and season 4 and 5 and 6 rolled around, Kate's story was kind of taking a bit of a backseat. Keep in mind, by then they'd added in a lot more cast members. It wasn't just the core group anymore. Now you had the others on the island, and you had all the other stuff they had to fill time. They had to fill 44 minutes a time once a week for about 6 months, right? 4 to 6 months. So or 5 to 6 months. So they're very much filling all this time, and her story kept probably getting pushed and pushed and pushed back. And the writing on Lost didn't really get much better after the second season. The writing on Lost, I mean, look at the ending of it for all things considered about how bad it went. So I think her frustration was from her character. I think her frustration is from the character. I think the frustration is clearly from where things were with her at the time. I think where her character was on the show, how much screen time she was getting, how much of it was good screen time, and how much of her character had been pushed from this lead character, right? Like the second in the show, basically, like the female lead, to now being a love interest, caught in between a triangle between Jack and Sawyer, right? She was kind of shoehorned into that. And I think that's what it mostly boils down to. The thing is too, it's like JJ Abrams says he's reached out to talk to her. They says that they've reached out to try to solve it. They've tried to find a way to make it work. And they were unable to contact her. You're telling me that 6 years of working together on a show that no one would know a cell phone number, no one would know a private email, no one would know how to contact a friend of a friend, contact an agent to get through. Something about this seems a little bit fishy to me, right? It seems a little bit fishy, and it kind of feels a bit fishy on both ends. But at the same time, given how the Me Too movement's gone, I feel bad calling most everything I read into question these days, because I feel you need that extra bit of scrutiny in order to truly get to the bottom of the story, which oftentimes the way the media covers things is we never, ever, ever do.